The United Kingdom is preparing for a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine with special forces on alert and nuclear deterrents in play. As NATO discusses its role, Ukraine rejects UN peacekeepers, seeking stronger European security guarantees. What are the plans on the table for peacekeepers, and will they be realized? Learn in our report by Alexander Zaslavets and Larisa Petruk.
London accelerates its military planning to prepare for a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine once a ceasefire agreement is reached, according to the UK government. The UK special forces have been placed on high alert for deployment, reports the I-paper.
Special forces units were told to prepare for mobilization to Ukraine by military planners tasked with readying forces by the Cabinet Office, according to two military sources with knowledge of the directive. The Command Centre for UK Military Planning, the Permanent Joint Headquarters, was sent directives last week to begin the process for the deployment of personnel and resources. From the I-paper publication.
Without providing Ukraine with security guarantees, Putin will violate any peace agreement, believes Keir Starmer. This is why London and its allies are moving from political support to Kyiv to military planning.
It is vitally important that we do that work because we know one thing for certain, which is a deal without anything behind it is something that Putin will breach. We know that because it's happened before, and I'm absolutely clear in my mind it will happen again. Therefore, what you're doing here today is vitally important to peace and security across Europe and for our NATO allies, and of course, crucially, for the United Kingdom.
The UK government has also assured that it is prepared to deter potential Russian aggression. In 2024, London announced large investments in its nuclear program. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak stated that more than £760 million will be invested in the sector by 2030. One component of the UK's nuclear deterrence is the Trident program. One submarine of this project can carry up to 16 ballistic missiles, each armed with 12 warheads. This means a single vessel could potentially deliver 192 warheads in one salvo.
One Trident submarine has the ability to incinerate 40 Russian cities very quickly. That is a lot of food for thought for Putin, and that should make any world leader fearful. Putin knows what Trident submarines can deliver, and that is something he has to factor into all of his calculations when he is provoking the West. Russian air defense systems are not that great. Russia is also the largest country on Earth. It is impossible to defend against a ballistic missile attack. Chris Perry, retired Rear Admiral of the Royal Navy, in an interview with The Telegraph.
The number of countries willing to send peacekeepers to Ukraine is known, but the start of the mission depends on the progress of peace negotiations, according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Moreover, the list of willing countries could expand. For instance, on March 21st, during a press conference in Kyiv, the president of the Czech Republic stated that his country is ready to consider such a scenario.
Regarding the coalition of the willing, I personally see it as a group of countries that are ready to work, not just talk. That's why I'm talking about concrete results. There was a meeting at the level of commanders-in-chief in London, and its main goal was to discuss the modalities of this potential military presence in Ukraine. The Czech Republic is ready to be part of these negotiations. And if there is a final decision to create such forces, I truly believe the Czech Republic will become part of them.
It is known that the center of the peacekeeping contingent will consist of troops from the United Kingdom and France. Allies are still discussing the details of the future mission.
The rules of engagement and the rules of self-defense and what to do if the peacekeeping or stabilization mission is in any way attacked, these are some of the most vexing and difficult questions to grapple with. One would assume they'd also be part of any negotiation that gives this kind of force a mandate. There has been a heightened sense of awareness that NATO itself may have to be defended ever since the big invasion began in February 2022. Now, of course, operational preparation is mission specific, but I think very generically speaking, Western European troops are actually now quite well practiced in deploying in numbers to Eastern Europe.
At the same time, Ukraine does not view the United Nations-led peacekeeping mission as an alternative to the plans of European partners and security guarantees, stated the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. According to Zelensky, the UN will not be able to protect Ukraine from occupation or Putin's desire to reignite the war. Reported by Alexander Zaslavets, Larisa Petruk, UATV News.
Russia is lobbying hard to bring Nord Stream 2 back to life, but Germany has slammed the door shut. With its economy bleeding from sanctions and Gazprom losing billions, the Kremlin is scrambling to find new buyers. Learn more in the report by Katerina Bastun and Kristina Dombrovska.
The starting point of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is located on the coastline of the German federal state of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. Therefore, the stance of this region's authorities is crucial, according to the German newspaper Handelsblatt. The minister-president of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, Manuela Schwesig, emphasized that the issue of resuming and launching the Russian pipeline will not be considered in the near future. Her statement comes in response to reports in several media outlets claiming that Moscow is lobbying in the United States for a restart of Nord Stream.
Germany has had a clear rule from the very beginning: Nord Stream 2 will not be certified if Russia crosses the red line. With its aggressive war against Ukraine, Russia has significantly crossed that red line. This threatens peace in Europe. Therefore, I believe that in today's circumstances, sending such signals is absolutely unacceptable. Manuela Schwesig, Minister-President of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, in a comment to the Handelsblatt newspaper.
The German government has confirmed that there are no grounds to discuss the resumption of Russian gas supplies to the country. According to German media, citing a government spokesperson, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will soon present her plan to phase out Russian energy imports. The coalition agreement of the new Bundestag should include a refusal to resume operation of the Nord Stream pipeline, says Ruprecht Polenz, a member of the Christian Democratic Union. Meanwhile, Julia Berlinden, a politician of the Alliance 90, the Greens, believes that Germany should completely stop importing Russian energy and transition to alternative suppliers. According to her, the future German government must accelerate the development of renewable energy sources.
They are very clear about it. They don't need Nord Stream anymore because they have made huge efforts to eliminate their dependence on Russian gas. Negotiations between Russia and the US are ongoing. Russia has offered numerous preferences and business opportunities for American companies. This includes Nord Stream 2, Arctic oil and gas fields, and rare earth metals. Nord Stream 2 is critical for Russia because Gazprom is essentially bankrupt.
After losing the European market due to Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Gazprom's foreign currency reserves have melted. According to Russian accounting standards, by the end of 2024, a company's head office reserves had shrunk more than fivefold. Putin's attempt to replace the European market with China has also failed. Negotiations over the construction of the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline have been put on hold. However, the most damaging blow to Gazprom has been Ukraine's refusal to extend the gas transit contract through its territory.
According to financial reports based on Russian accounting standards, Gazprom's parent company suffered a net loss of 1 trillion rubles in 2024, with 192 billion rubles lost from sales. Exports to Europe reached 32 billion cubic meters, only 4 billion cubic meters more than in 2023, when gas shipments collapsed to their lowest level since the late 1970s, from the Moscow Times publication.
Sanctions targeting Russia's energy sector have proven to be the most effective, according to the White House. Revenue from oil and gas export has historically been a cornerstone of the Russian state budget. To force Putin to the negotiation table, Washington is prepared to further tighten restrictions on Russia, stated U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent. According to him, President Donald Trump has instructed him to draft a list of potential sanctions should additional pressure on Moscow be required. Reported by Katerina Bastun, Kristina Dombrovska, UATV News.
Protests in Slovakia continue to escalate as citizens demand Prime Minister Fico's resignation over his very pro-Russian policies, to put it mildly. With growing rallies across the country, Slovaks are rejecting his stance on Ukraine and EU sanctions, pushing for a democratic future in united Europe. Fico's grip on power is weakening as the pressure intensifies. Alexandra Zaslavets and Natalia Hasek will tell you more.
Mass anti-government protests took place in Slovakia on Friday, March 21st, in the capital Bratislava and 30 other cities across the country. The main slogan of the protesters was "Slovakia is Europe." Demonstrators are calling for the resignation of the government due to Prime Minister Robert Fico's pro-Russian policies. The participants of the protests consider the situation in the country critical.
What have we come to? For years we have listened to empty promises and seen our hopes and ambitions lost in a system that does not hear us. If nothing changes, more young people will leave because we deserve more.
Protests in Slovakia began in January 2025 following the visit of the country's prime minister to Moscow. Fico's position sharply contrasts with European policies towards the aggressor state. He opposes providing aid to Ukraine and sanctions against the Kremlin. The prime minister of Slovakia has repeatedly called on Brussels to pressure Kyiv to resume the transit of Russian gas through Ukraine. According to the organizers and participants of the protest, Fico's policies threaten Slovakia's future in a democratic and free Europe.
Fico's foreign policy is not supported by Slovaks. Over 50% are against his foreign policy. Fico is trying to navigate this situation, but unfortunately, his rhetoric is one-sided. Of course, this is the Russian Federation, and Slovaks strongly disagree with this. As we saw with the protesters, they are unequivocally against the policy he's pursuing. They fear that this could create significant tension with Brussels.
On March 20th, Fico announced that he rejected the plan proposed by the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, and that Slovakia would not provide military assistance to Ukraine.
Following the proposal by the so-called Minister of Foreign Affairs, the EU voted to quickly assemble financial aid for Ukraine from national budgets, ranging from 20 to 40 billion euros, primarily to be used for artillery, ammunition, or missile procurement. Of course, we will exercise our right to opt out and will not send a single cent from our budget to fund their weapons. However, we cannot prevent other EU member states from assisting Ukraine on a bilateral and voluntary basis.
Fico also stated that Slovakia could veto new EU sanctions against Russia. To impose sanctions, consensus is required from all 27 EU member states. Fico does not support Slovakia's participation in the peacekeeping mission in Ukraine. He stated that peacekeeping forces should only consist of soldiers from countries that are not direct neighbors of Ukraine or Russia.
He has adopted a policy of blackmail. We saw this policy when they were trying to leverage negotiations about gas transit. But of course, they've already announced that dealing with Russian gas will be difficult. Kyiv will not agree to this.
Meanwhile, the European Union is already discussing a plan to minimize Slovakia's losses from halting the transit of Russian gas. The plan includes using Ukrainian underground gas storage facilities, according to Politico citing sources.
The scheme would avoid the need to buy gas from Russia. Instead, Ukraine would ramp up gas imports from Greece and Turkey and store up to 10 billion cubic meters of gas in its storage facilities. Those flows would then pass via Slovak pipelines to countries like Hungary during winter when supplies are low. From Politico publication.
The protesters labeled the Slovak government's policy as capitulation to Russia and called for the prime minister's resignation. Fico has refused to step down, calling the mass demonstrations an attempt at a coup allegedly orchestrated by the groups with connections to foreign countries and the Slovak opposition. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavec, Natalia Husak, Volodymyr Shtenhelyov, UATV News.